Winsor McCay is not only here in spirit tonight, but also in terms of his legacy, namely the award that bears his name for the Lifetime and Career Achievement in Animation. To present the first of this evening's Winsor McCay Awards, please welcome visual effects animator Hal Hickel.
I think of Phil as being part of what I consider sort of the greatest generation of visual effects artists, and it's the kind of the children of Ray Harryhausen, the guys like Ken Ralston and Dennis Murin and Dave Allen, Jim Danforth, and Phil. And you know, as a kid in 1977, 13 years old, making stop motion films, Star Wars comes out and blows my mind, just like everybody else's. And I'm reading, you know, the behind-the-scenes articles, and Phil's name just leaps off the page at me because, you know, he and John Berg had done the holographic chess scene, and I was already into stop motion at that point, and I just had to know everything about this guy from then on. You know, I followed his career, and so the amazing, you know, ice battle on Hoth, and the, you know, proto go motion work with the Tauntaun, and then the full-on go motion work with the Vermithrax dragon and Dragonslayer, which, by the way, still inspiring us today, our flying kaiju in Pacific Rim, Itachi, you know, its walk, its whole attitude, totally patterned after Vermithrax. So thanks, Phil, for doing the heavy lifting on that. Tip of the hat to you. You know, and then after that, just film after film, the incredible orgy of rod puppets and animatronics and rubber masks and killer stop motion in Return of the Jedi, the Dark Overlord in Howard the Duck, the Ebersisk in Willow, on and on. I remember completely obsessing over the work in RoboCop 1 and 2. Just I wanted to know everything about it. And so Phil just, you know, was a guy that I really admired, you know, the work that his studio did. And then you get to a watershed moment like Jurassic Park, which, yeah, please. And that was a big deal for many of us, but also a big moment of change for all of us who are working in stop motion animation. Scary moment, and more so, I think, for anyone else than for Phil. You know, I think he famously said, I'm extinct. And of course that didn't happen. And the thing that was so amazing is just a few years later, his shop, Tippett Studios, came out with the work on Starship Troopers. And it wasn't just a bunch of stop motion guys making the transition and doing a creditable job with some CG creatures. I mean, they kicked everybody's ass all over the place, excuse my French, but it was amazing. I mean, all of us who were working in visual effects then were just absolutely gobsmacked. It was terrifying, not just terrifying in the sense of the thrills and chills of the movie, as it was terrifying for anyone watching it, but as a visual effects artist, I remember just sitting there thinking, is somebody going to come to us now and ask us to do something like that? Because frankly, I have no idea how, you know, thousands of bugs crawling over Klendathu, attacking the forest. It's like, I don't even know how they did it. So to have that come from, you know, a group of guys in a stop motion shop, to me was like a giant 900-foot flaming middle finger to the idea that technology was going to steamroll over these guys' passion and their talent for creating creatures. And I just thought that was so brilliant and wonderful. And so thanks, Phil, for that. And, you know, the last thing I want to say is, you know, here's a guy who's had incredible success in, you know, two different eras of visual effects and could easily be resting on his laurels now. And instead, he's heading off soon to direct the dinosaurs in the fourth Jurassic Park film, Jurassic World. And even cooler still for me personally is this decades-long passion project of his Mad God. And if you haven't seen any of it, you can find the trailer for it on YouTube, and the actual whole first part of it is available on the Mad God website. And it's awesome. It's just awesome. It's this beautiful, tactile, dirty, you know, you watch it, you can smell the hot glue and the, you know, smell the oil from the machine shop, and I swear to God, the first time I watched it, I had dirt under my fingernails after watching it. I don't know how that happened. It's just beautiful stop motion work. And so thanks, Phil, for keeping it real and keeping us honest. All right, I'm going to come back to script now. I hope that didn't go too long there. Phil said keep it short and sweet, so I totally blew that. So now, let's take a look at some of the extraordinary work of Phil Tippett. In recognition of his talent, dedication, and passion for filmmaking, as well as his commitment to mentorship, the board of ASIFA-Hollywood presents its Winsor McCay Award to Phil Tippett.
Yeah, I was tired of sitting down for an hour myself, so I get it. Hal left his speech up here, so I'm just going to read it to you again now. So I got dinner before I got here, and I got some really bad hummus. And if I projectile vomit, it's not a special effect. It's like I just have to kind of go slow a little bit here. So thanks, ASIFA, for this great honor, this tremendous award. You know what? It's like the all about me thing. Oh, you know what? So vomiting reminds me of something. Anyway, Hal was just saying, reminding me about Jurassic Park, and Stephen told me a story, because we were talking about stop motion animation, blah, blah, blah. And he went, when I was 7 or 8 years old, Jason the Argonauts came to our movie theater, and I think it was someplace in Arizona where he lived. He was a kid. And so we went to see Jason the Argonauts with his, is he here tonight? Stephen? Oh, good. So he won't tell the story, so I'm not going to step on a Steven Spielberg story. So where was I? Yeah, so he goes to the theater to see Jason the Argonauts, and he goes with a bunch of friends, and they sit up on the balcony, and it's totally crowded like this place is. And they're watching the thing, and they decide to be like bad little boys, and they take their half-eaten popcorn and pour it into the half-drunk Coca-Cola, and they mix it up, and they take it over to the balcony, and they go well, I think I'm gonna be sick, and they pour the stuff into just like where you're sitting, and he said, and you wouldn't believe it, everything they said about chain vomiting was true. The whole, 1,000 people that were watching this thing just started puking, and it was it was a horror story. And it flipped them out, and they just got out of the theater and ran all the way home. And in those days, and he didn't dare go back to the theater because he was afraid that someone would figure him out. And so in those days, if you didn't see the movie in the first run, you were shit out of luck. And so he didn't get to see the skeleton fight for whatever it was, 15 years by the time it came on television. Anyway. But that guy was, if I have anything to say tonight, it's about people that help you out along the way, and Stephen was very, very much a big help to me at a very difficult time when the sea change happened from stop motion and go motion into computer graphics work. And my buddy Dennis Murin had kept me, in the loop on what was going on, and I went down with him when Dennis brought this T-Rex. This T-Rex footage that they did as an example of what computer graphics would be, and at that point in time, Stephen said, that's the way I want to make my movie. And the next thing he did was he turned to me and he said, how does that make you feel? And I went it makes me feel extinct. And he goes, and I'm thinking, he's going to say, yeah, you're shit out of luck, Buster. But instead he goes, hey, that's a great line. I'm going to use it in my movie. And, and then from then it was just like, oh, I haven't lost my job. My career isn't like, I'm not like a useless stop motion animator anymore. And, and then I got kicked upstairs and it wasn't nearly as fun because I liked animating a lot more than I did, supervising stuff like that. But I was really kind of lucky to have, like a number of mentors in my life, or folks that helped me out. When I was a kid, I had, through Forrest J. Ackerman, who had the only periodical that had any information at all about any of this stuff, had this monster magazine called Famous Monsters of Filmland, and Forey had the Acker Mansion that was this great museum. They had tons of artifacts and a lot of the King Kong and Mighty J. Young puppets and Ray Harryhausen puppets and blah, blah, blah. And so whenever Ray Harryhausen would come to town, he'd invite us up to his place, or would introduce us to Ray Bradbury, where I had a huge correspondence with Bradbury. He was one of the most influential adults in my life, because he was the guy that said, don't listen to any adults, if they tell you that you're not going to be able to do what you want to do, which was, at that time, my uncle would take me aside and say, listen, kid, you're never going to be a stop-motion animator because there aren't any of those around anymore. They don't make any money, so you should figure out how to do something like teach to, as a backup plan. And so Ray was just saying, don't listen to those guys, because you won't be sorry, even if you're wrong. You won't be sorry. And I got into this philosophical discussion with him, later on. And in the 70s, or was it the 80s? I don't remember. The nomenclature of the term, well, the 60s, it was love, right? And that was the word that Ray used. You got to pursue, the stuff that you love. And then in the 70s or the 80s, the word turned to you follow your passion. You have your passion. And so I looked at, turn it off. I got to talk over it. So where was I? Passion. And so I looked up the word passion, and it's really worth looking up the word passion, because passion means to suffer for what you do and being willing to go in there and do, it's about king, that was that, standing up for your beliefs and, taking the risk of getting crucified and, dealing with it. So, and then I'll get out of here real quick, but I was just remembering some, another mentor. I was really lucky. I work at Cascade Pictures of California, a commercial place, and Tex Avery ran the animation department there. And Tex was a 70-year-old guy, chain smoked, non-filtered Camel cigarettes, and I was sitting out in front of the stage bumming the smoke from him, and I didn't know jack shit, and I asked him, hey, Tex, how do you read a dummy sheet? And he goes, oh, here, I'll show you. And he draws all this stuff out with Bugs Bunny and, different poses. And hey, what's up, Doc? And here's the frames and how it lays out and all of that. And I go, wow, that's really cool. Could you sign it for me? And he goes, well, sure. And he writes, to my good friend Phil, Tex Avery. And it's like one of the best mementos that I've got. I've got it really nicely framed on the wall, because he was like this really sweet guy. And his mentorship was one of something that I had never really considered, and that was a lot of his stories were really great about the old days of Warner Brothers, and there's a million of them, but just a couple of them where there was a jerk that they worked with that they absolutely hated, and the guy was really fastidious, and every day he would go down to the old Coke machine and open up the old Coke machine. It was one of those things you put a nickel in, you have to weave the Coke bottle through the thing, and you pull it up, and this guy would drink his 7-Up down all in one gulp, and they hated this guy, and they wanted to get even with him. And so what they did was they went into the 7-Up machine and they popped it out and they poured like vodka in it, straight vodka, and put it back. And the guy goes down there, marches down, puts his nickel in, takes his thing, and they thought that was hilarious. And so they were gag men, and they did shit like this all the time. And the best one I heard was what they would do if they had like an executive. This is really good. You should try it. That they hated. They would get an anchovy and thumbtack it underneath the desk. And they never figured it out, and they always moved out. They stayed away from the animation department. But what I walked away from all that stuff was with a really valuable lesson. Is being subversive. And if I can encourage you to do anything in your careers tonight, is to do as much subversive stuff as you can.